My name is Jeff H. Sipe, and I have over 10 years of recruiting experience, including 5 years at Google. In this video, we are going to cover the coronavirus and your job interview. And as I thought about writing this script, I asked myself, hey, am I keeping this unique enough? And the answer was no. So I had to really kind of go back and rewrite this script. And what I found is I wanted to cover just a few nuances that aren't really being covered in other videos and other articles, and we really just need to adapt and adjust to this current landscape. So I'll touch on a couple of generic things, but overall I want to take a little bit different focus and different approach today. If you like my content, please like. If you have any comments on this tricky situation, please comment below. And if you like my overall content, please subscribe. Item 1, attitude. And so we definitely need to start with this item because it's just not being discussed enough, and you absolutely cannot let this virus impact your attitude. And so this is going to be the foundation for your success in the interview. And so 3 items that I really want you to focus on are positivity, always, gratitude, and empathy. And this is going to be one of those scenarios where you need to be a little bit more empathetic than normal. And so if your interviewer's bummed out, be empathetic. Try and bring them up. And really what you focus on is reiterating your excitement for the company, for speaking with them, and the role. And maybe just kind of bringing in this positive connectivity will just bring them out of their funk a little bit, but never ever take that negative path with them. Always try and spin it into a positive as much as you can. Remember, people have had and know people who are impacted by this virus. People have lost a lot of money. They've had to give up vacations. Their kids are home from school, right? There's a lot of challenges. So if you can bring in that super positive attitude and state of mind, you are really going to start off well from the beginning. And that's a great segue into item 2, introduction. So we've all read the studies, right? Interviewers are making decisions on whether they're going to hire you within the first 5, 10, 15 seconds. So because these interviews are going to be done via phone, via video, you need to up your level in the introduction. You need to be super positive, have that smile, have a friendly voice, because your introduction, again, it's just really, really powerful, and that you maybe, again, knock them out of their funk a little bit. And so with the phone interview, I want you to stand. That's why I stand when I do these videos, so that my voice projects a little bit better. I have a little bit better energy. This is why speakers stand when they present in front of an audience. Now, with a video interview, I want you to just create this bigger smile, this bigger presence as much as you can, because it's not going to have the same impact as walking up to somebody and shaking their hand face to face. There's a lot of power there. So you have to almost overemphasize this part, but in correlation with this introduction, whether it's on the phone, obviously you're not going to be able to see the person, but if you are doing this via video, absolutely make sure the light's coming in on you, that the camera angle is at the right angle, about shoulder length, maybe looking up slightly or looking at an even length, and make sure you're dressed appropriately for the type of job and groomed appropriately. I mean, this stuff is super important. And then lastly, clean background. Remember, your background translates into the mental space, and if you have a messy background, people are going to think you're disorganized and not ready to perform on the job. Item 3, platform testing. So this is something that some other people have talked about, but I wanted to reiterate here, and I wanted to really focus on 2 items. 1, if you have never used Google Hangouts or Zoom or BlueJeans or Chime or Skype, I want you to test it, and I don't want you to test it once. I want you to test it 2, 3, 4 times with another human being. Make sure you know all the ins and outs of this platform if that's going to be used in the interview. You really don't want a user error to be part of the reason why your interview doesn't go right. Technical difficulties happen, but user error, it's just not acceptable. Secondly, I also want you to test the platform the day of. So if you can get on with somebody in the morning, and or I also want you to get on that platform like 5 minutes early just to make sure everything's working and going smoothly with your phone. Just make sure your cell service is good in that particular spot on that day. We all know cell service can go a little bit in and out, so just make sure you're in the ideal spot and it's working, and you can do that with a test phone call. Item 4, notes. Okay, so let's talk about the advantage of being in a phone or video interview, and that's your ability to reference notes. Now, before I go any further, notes oftentimes can be a disadvantage. So when we're talking about notes, you really need to keep it super simplistic. So for behavioral examples, you're going to use 2 to 3 words to just make you remember that great example you have. And then with a framework, you just want to create naming conventions, mnemonics, where you have lettered out the framework and it just helps you remember which are the components you want to be referencing. Remember, less is more. If you're reading off the paper over the phone or via video, it's going to be obvious. Now on video, let's talk about that for a second. I don't want your notes up here so you're looking away. I don't want them on your screen so you're looking, but it's clear that you're kind of reading some lines. You really want them down below so that when you write down the question, that you can also reference something down below. Remember, the placement of those notes is just as important as the simplicity of what you put on them. It does help and is an advantage, especially for video on sites. You'll have something to reference. Just keep it simple as much as possible. Item 5, whiteboard. Okay, I really want to discuss this one. Many of my clients have been telling me they love using a whiteboard in an on-site interview, and they feel like it's a huge disadvantage to not have that whiteboard for the video interview. And my question is, why not? If you are comfortable using a whiteboard, go buy one on Amazon. They're as cheap as $7.50 for a whiteboard. Now, I probably want you to spend a little bit more on one, get one that's a little nicer, but for $20, you can get a nice whiteboard, and then you are going to practice the setup and practice it with another human being, where you're getting your laptop at the right angle, where it's clear, your writing is clear, it's big enough, the camera's close enough that your body is not actually blocking what you're writing. So you really have to practice and test it. The other really important piece is, let's say you had a slate of 4 or 5 interviews for your on-site and now they're all via video. You don't want to be standing for 2.5, 3 hours. So you're going to have to figure out a physical setup where you're standing and sitting. And that's tricky too. So you have to practice that, but absolutely 100% chance. If I had an on-site that had been moved to a video interview, or I just had a video interview in general, I'm going to the whiteboard. The whiteboard, I think, is a huge advantage for the way that I explain things and talk through things. So you don't have to give up this fantastic tool. You just have to practice what that setup looks like at home. Item 6, no excuses. I think we really need to end on this item because everybody's being impacted by this virus in one way or another, and excuses for not being prepared, having technical difficulties, having a negative attitude, it just won't fly. If you're giving me excuses in the interview, I'm going to translate that to somebody who makes excuses on the job, and we're all going through this challenge together. So you really have to remember that. I've already had a lot of people in my business coming to me with excuses, and the reality is that it's just not acceptable. Don't make excuses. It will be viewed as negative, and it will definitely be a downtick on your success. I know some of this stuff is pretty basic, pretty common sense stuff, but I just wanted to take an approach where I felt I was being a little different and providing you with some good guidance and advice. Please be safe. Please make great decisions, and I'll be back next week with another video that's focused on something a little more positive. Thanks.